money is a very important metric when it comes to measuring success. I think if you really want to do something substantial in life, you have to be obsessed. You can't think about balance. You notice very specific details about someone. You compliment their efforts.
Hi, I'm Vrunda Pansuriya, a PGPDMS student at IIDE, and today we have a very special guest, Shreyas Sahay, who is an entrepreneur, a content creator, a communication consultant, and a brand strategist for celebrity-led brands. So, sir, can you share your entrepreneurial journey? Like, how did you start, and what was your thought behind launching your own venture? And now you're also creating content. So, how are you doing all of this simultaneously?
So, very interesting question, Vrunda. And I'll tell you a quick brief about my journey and how I got into this. I started earning when I was 16 years old. Okay. So, I feel with my background, the kind of upbringing I had, the kind of situation that was present in my family at that point in time, I very early on understood in life that money is a very important metric when it comes to measuring success and when it comes to the world giving you a certain amount of value, right? I felt that if you have money, people perceive you in a different way. They are more likely to listen to you. They are more likely to value what you have to say, right? If you don't have money in your pocket when you're giving gyan, then your gyan is irrelevant, right? I think Shah Rukh Khan once said this, that before you become a philosopher, become a king, right? Because without being successful, your philosophy is just plain words because nobody will apply it. So I understood this concept very early on in life. And since the age of 16, I have been experimenting and trying to find different ways of earning money, right? So at that time, when I was in 11th, I think at that point in time, I sold my first service, which was in the area of Google My Business. Okay. And I went to this shop in Lokhandwala market and I said that, hey, I am somebody who understands how to position your shop and how to make it pretty, I would say, searchable on Google. If somebody had to search for ice cream stores near me or clothing shops near me, right? Your business can pop up on the search result. Then they were like, sure, we'll pay you some money for it. So at that time, I charged them about 15,000 rupees. Right now, for a 16-year-old in school, that is a pretty big amount. So I understood that I can earn a lot more money when I am doing something of my own or when I'm able to create some substantial value for people, right? That is how it all started. And by doing this, by saving money, by cycling to school, tuitions, to my gym at that time, I saved up money and I had a corpus of 50,000 at that time in 11th grade, right? And my worldview changed simply by having more money in the bank. It was cash at that time. But I discovered that it does give you a lot of confidence. It does give you a sense of security, right? So that is how my mindset about being an entrepreneur started. Then when I went to my college, NMIMS, I was pursuing my BBA. My mentor, Mr. Pratish Nair, at that point in time, him being an entrepreneur himself, he really drilled the idea of entrepreneurship, starting your own venture, really into all of our students, right? And the way he did it was also very practical, right? He enabled us to build brands. I started a podcast back in college and we scaled it to an extent. So that podcast was known as Q&A. The full form was questions that nobody answers. We got Kama Sutra on board as a sponsor. We got an offer for the podcast to get acquired for about 15 lakhs.
Amazing.
Again, as a college student, it's a pretty big amount, right? So an amalgamation of all of these experiences and all these mentors is what gave me the confidence to step into this arena of entrepreneurship, right? Post my graduation, I started my own digital marketing firm. We used to offer 360-degree marketing solutions to primarily architects, interior designers, and real estate developers. And while I was pursuing my job, I was going about trying to search for new clients, trying to get new opportunities, trying to find ways of earning more money. I found this gentleman named Vishal Sinha. All right. Now, Vishal Sinha was the person who built 1-8 with Virat Kohli and Puma, right? And he scaled it up to a huge extent. They generate like hundreds of crores of revenue per annum. And he also built a brand with Sanjeev Kapoor called Wonder Chef.
Yeah.
Now, Wonder Chef is now valued at about 1,000 crores. So, when I met him, I really understood that okay, this space is very lucrative and I would love to learn this. So, since then, we have been working together. He is an incredible guy, very talented. So, I'm basically a part of this company called Swag Fashions, where we build all these brands, right? And yeah, the good part is that you do make a good amount of income through it. And yeah, it's fun building brands.
So as mentioned, you are a content creator, you are a communication trainer, you are an entrepreneur. So you're wearing multiple hats. So how do you balance all of these things? And also there's a whole trend of the hustle culture. So do you believe in hustle culture or do you believe in work-life balance?
See, if you ask me personally, I am not a very big advocate of work-life balance because I, as a person, am very extreme. So, if let's say when I started working out, for example, I used to work out 3 hours a day, do cardio three times per day, and I went all crazy behind it, right? As my personality as a person is very extreme, I become obsessed about things. So when you ask me about work-life balance, I have no idea. I swear, Vrunda, I woke up at I think 7:30 in the morning. I did my morning routine. I meditated. I did my vocal exercises. I read a book. After that, I have just been at it. And I will be working even today till about 1 a.m. My day is completely packed, So on any average day, I'm working around 18 hours per day.
Oh my God.
Right? So I have no concept about work-life balance. My only priority is that I should be able to eat, I should be able to do my meditation, and I should be able to get one workout in. Right? As long as I'm not skipping meals or not skipping my workouts, I think I'm pretty good. Right? Because that is what keeps me sane. There was a point where I even used to forget eating meals. I used to forget my breakfast, lunch, sometimes even dinner, just because I was working so much. So I have no concept about work-life balance. I don't know how that works. I'm sure there are a lot of people who know how to balance it well, who are successful learning that balance and really living a more sustainable and a more wholesome life. I personally don't know how to do that yet. So when I do know, I can give you a better answer, I'm sure. But as of now, I don't think it works for me. I think if you really want to do something substantial in life, you have to be obsessed. You can't think about balance.
I think even as a fresher, a lot of us are always like, if I'm working in an agency, I am only available from 9 to 5. So that's a perception that we have made that if we are a fresher, we have to be continuously available wherever we are working. So coming to the next, public speaking is something that a lot of people are very afraid of, because even myself as a child, I was very afraid of speaking in front of the public, or I used to literally shiver when just the thought of that people are watching me used to come in my mind. So are there any techniques that you personally followed in the beginning of your career, or do you even practice even now, that would help a student or a fresher or anyone in general to cope up when they are speaking in front of the public?
Sure. So being nervous is a part of public speaking, right? I don't think it could be anyone. It could be a speaker who has been speaking on stages all over the world for the past 20 years. But I'm 100% sure that they still feel nervous every single time they step on stage. Reason being, it is a part of our mindset, right? We have evolved in a way where we seek the validation of society simply because as a community, if we aren't accepted by if you're not accepted by the society, we will be kicked out, right? And if you see in olden times, if we are not a part of a tribe, the survival for humans becomes a lot more difficult, right? So being socially accepted, being accepted by communities is a concept that is really ingrained in our minds. And when we get on stage, when we address an audience, then this fear, it just kicks in, that hey, what if they reject us, right? What if we are outcasted? That is where the nervousness stems from. So being nervous is very normal. What can be worked on is how do our actions succeed that nervousness, that feeling of nervousness. What do we do after we feel nervous, right? We can either feel it and we can let that emotion affect us, and we can fumble on stage and we can forget our lines, and it will prevent us from being present in the moment. Or we accept that feeling, we let it go, and then we take action from a very output oriented perspective, from a very objective perspective, that hey, my job on this stage as a public speaker is to address the audience and is to ensure that they understand where I'm coming from and what I'm trying to communicate, right? So I feel nervousness can be tackled by simply accepting it as an emotion and moving on.
Many people are shy about creating content online. And personally, during an interview, when I was asked that show me your LinkedIn profile, and at that point of time, I didn't even have like a good LinkedIn profile. So there was a question arised by the interviewer that if you yourself don't have a LinkedIn profile, how are you going to create content for other social media or other brands? So how do we create our own online presence, or how do we create our own personal branding on social media?
I think when I started creating content, it was purely out of the passion for educating people about how soft skills can change their life, because it has changed mine. I don't make any product, I don't create anything, I don't sell anything physical. All I do is connect people together. All I do is build relations. All I do is talk about how to express yourself and to understand other people better. That's the only thing, right? So when I came from this intent, my perspective was not to gain followers, it was just to talk about what I have to talk about, right? And what I noticed was that to answer your question, what is important is you need to find a niche, right? It can't be a page that is addressing a very broad audience. It can address a broad audience, but it needs to have a certain trigger point. If I were to give you the trigger point for my audience, there are a lot of people who feel nervous when they speak on stage. There are a lot of people who don't know how to network at parties and events. There are a lot of people who don't know how to make friends, right? So they have this certain trigger point. You need to either address that, or you need to build your niche in a particular domain. It could be fashion, it could be food, it could be communication, it could be finance, whatever you like, whatever your genuine interest is. The reason why genuine interest is important is because it is a long-term game. You can't do it for 3 months and then just stop, right? You have to plan on doing it for the next 3 years, which is how you will be able to build and scale it. So you need to speak about the things that you are genuinely interested in. That is one. Once you do that, you need to be very consistent, right? And the problem with consistency is you run out of content ideas, right? Which is why please don't shy away from taking inspiration from existing content. Because let's say communication as an example. There are hundreds of online coaches who teach what I teach. But what is my USP? It is my personality. It is the way I talk, it is the way I teach. So your USP is not something that you should be concerned about, because your USP is your personality. You just need to be authentic and things will just go down. It'll just progress in a very easy way for you, right? You won't have to put much efforts, because people want to see you, right? They don't want to see Vrunda emulating some other content creator. No, they want to see Vrunda as herself, right? So when you really try to express yourself authentically, you have already created your niche and USP, right? So your personality, biggest USP, biggest niche, because nobody can replace it.
So coming to the next, you have a lot of experience. So, what's the one go-to strategy that you have consistently used in your interviews, or even when you want to win over new clients? Are there any specific strategy that you follow in every time you pitch a client, or are there any like communication techniques that you use to win over them, like or you believe in first impression is the last impression?
If you ask me about my go-to strategy, it is be yourself and have a good time. I swear to God, it's the best strategy that I've ever used. I'll tell you the reason why. At the end of the day, the pitch is definitely important. I'm not saying that you should go there unprepared, without an elevator pitch, without having any idea on what you have to offer. But what people really are seeking is they should trust you, right? They should enjoy working with you and they should like you as a person, right? At the end of the day, money is one thing, your offer is one thing, but it's about that human connection first. And you can only get it once you are just being yourself. You can have a good conversation with another person as a human first. You can understand where they are coming from, right? So it's not a service provider and a service seeker. It is not an employer-employee. Just two people talking about life, having a good time. That is the biggest and the best strategy that I've ever used. It has always worked for me. I haven't found it's not even failed once. It has worked out that well for me, right?
Just being yourself.
Exactly. Be yourself, have a good time. Enjoy with the person, yeah? Enjoy the conversation, right? Then when it comes down to the work talk, then you obviously should have an elevator pitch ready. You should know what your value is, what skills do you have to offer, and then you simply educate them that, okay, I understand where you're coming from. These are my skill sets. And if you genuinely think that you can add value, and if you genuinely think that they need you in their team or they need your services, it is only then when you pitch them. So, a reason why I am emphasizing on this aspect is because sometimes people pitch themselves even when they are not sure whether the other person needs them or not, right? So while pitching, it also puts you in a position where you are hesitant in asking for more money, right? But when you come from this place of assurity that, hey, I will add value to this guy, hey, that they do need my services, you won't have any issues. Be it asking for more money or whether you want to pitch your services, you won't feel nervous at all because it's a very straightforward thing for you. They need me. Simple as that.
So, how can a student or a fresher in a brand or an agency setup respond professionally in front of their superiors? Because since we are a fresher, we have that kind of inferior complexity in front of our superiors that what if they judge us? So, how do we respond, articulating our thoughts and respond in a very clear and concise way? So, can you share some tips for the same?
The trend that I see is that people really are very output oriented when they speak with someone. So for example, if I'm speaking with you right now, I am speaking, and while I'm speaking, I'm thinking that, okay, what is she thinking about me? Is Vrunda thinking that my hair is all over the place? Or is she thinking that my shirt looks funny? Or maybe my pants are too tight? I don't know. But does that really matter? Articulation becomes a problem when you are stuck in your head. So the way you solve it is you just focus on what you are trying to say. You just make sure that, okay, this is what I want the other person to understand. That Vrunda, trust me, this plant is green, it has veins on it, and it just requires carbon dioxide and water, right? But if I start thinking that, okay, what if she thinks that the leaves are dirty? And what if she thinks that I'm lying about it consuming carbon dioxide? Maybe she thinks I'm a liar and it actually consumes oxygen, which is not true. And these thoughts are irrelevant, right? So the purpose is just for you to not be in your head, not to overthink what they are thinking about you or what they have to say. If they have to say something, they will say it. And you only think about it and you only respond to it after they have communicated their thoughts. There is no point in overthinking before they have said anything, right? So, to double down on ensuring that you are articulate, that you are able to express yourself well as a professional, it's important to be present and to only focus on expression rather than seeking the output from them after you have expressed yourself.
Yes, yes, it does make sense. Okay, so continuing the same question, if I'm in a client-facing role and I have a lot of deadlines, I am unsure that how to respond to them. So how can I remain calm under that situation? And especially when we are put on the spot, we are not prepared what we have to say. We are put on the spot that you need to answer this. How do we remain calm under that situation, and how do we also be confident during that point of time?
A simple formula for confidence is something that I just mentioned recently is familiarity plus exposure. So A, you need to be familiar with these situations. You need to consciously put yourself in situations where you are on the spot, where someone asks you a question and you feel unprepared, right? And you have to answer regardless. So even though you're feeling nervous, you have to speak something and you need to answer calmly even though you're thinking 1,000 things or you're feeling 1,000 things, whatever it might be. So to put yourself on the spot again and again is what will prime you to ensure that you don't feel nervous or you don't act out of nervousness, right? That is one thing. Secondly, see, if you're unprepared, then there is really no solution to it. You have to be prepared in your own way, but a lot of times being prepared is not enough. Because even though you are prepared, you still feel nervous. That's okay. And like I mentioned, nervousness is not the problem. It's fine to feel nervous, but we need to focus on expressing ourselves in the same way, regardless of whether we are nervous or not. So just feel the emotion, let it pass, do what you have to do.
Just to add up, if I'm feeling nervous internally, how can I not show it on the face? Because if I'm feeling nervous, it's very evident that it will, through my expressions, or if I'm fumbling, it would be very evident. How can I compose that expression?
That's a very good question. I will tell you a hack. Okay. Every time somebody feels nervous, they have a certain trigger that is very evident. For example,
Nails, eating nails.
People bite their nails. I used to touch my neck a lot to feel safe that, okay, yeah, this is what I have to say. So people have different physical triggers when they are feeling nervous, right? People either hunch their shoulders, they won't sit straight, or they might, tap their leg or move their leg a lot. It could be anything. Catch those triggers. If for you, it's let's assume it's biting your nails or it's to rub your hands. Very consciously catch that trigger and do the complete opposite. If you think that you rub your hands when you're feeling nervous, keep your hands apart, right? Make big gestures, make wide gestures. Do the opposite. If you think that tapping your foot is something that is a trigger point when you are feeling nervous, keep your foot flat on the ground. Ensure you don't tap it. So eliminate any physical fidgets that you do as a result of feeling nervous. So this counteraction will automatically rewire your brain, right? You will feel that, okay, I'm suddenly feeling more open. That nervousness is not affecting me anymore, right? Yes. Because that fidget is just an excuse to keep feeling what you're feeling and to keep comforting yourself. Why do you want to do that, right? Yes. So do the opposite. You feel like you hunch down, open, or bade ho jao, right?
Yeah. How do I network faster? For example,
okay. Yeah.
If I'm at a party,
sure,
or I am at a flight, how do I network on those situations?
Sure. So let me give you a 3-step process, right? Networking, the output that you want is to build a connection, right? The process is you to approach, you to gain familiarity, and you to close the person in some way. When I say close, I don't mean a transactional close. That transaction can be not in the form of money necessarily. It can be in the form of emotions. It can be in the form of contact numbers. It can be in the form of some sort of remembrance, right? How do you approach the person? Scientifically, the approach or the opening statement that works the best, can you guess what it is? It's hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hi.
People think that it has to be some cheesy line, some charismatic line that completely blows the other person away. A hello is the best thing you can say. After saying that, a lot of times what I do is that I give the other person a very specific compliment, right? For example, I really like the way that you have made this wave pattern on your nails, right? And even the way the silver on your earrings and your ring is matching, I think it's pretty good. It's well thought of.
Thank you.
Right? You're most welcome. So, point being that you notice very specific details about someone. You compliment their efforts. Like for example, I understand that, especially women, they take a lot of, difficulty. Like they put really a lot of efforts into dressing up, right? They match their shoes with their outfit. They do a lot of things, which is amazing. I think even guys should do it. But if you compliment someone's efforts, they will remember it. Point being, I give them a very specific compliment to build that likability that, hey, this person took the time, the effort, and they did observe our efforts, right? And when you let them know about these things, they feel good. So they like you more as a person. The third aspect is the close. How do you close the interaction, right? So if they feel that you have added enough value to them in the form of attention, emotional currency, you're giving them your time, whatever it might be. It might be in terms of a simple exchange in contact or an exchange in business cards or email IDs or whatever it might be. So I feel that these 3 steps really encapsulate the essence of networking. And obviously, if they ask you that, hey, what do you do? That is the cue for you to give your elevator pitch. So you need to have it ready at all times.
So in the field of digital marketing, networking is very important, and not just in this field, but in general, networking is very important. So how do we network faster and reach the right kind of audience, and not just faster, but how do we network effectively, and how do we win those clients over through this networking skill?
So I feel that every time you talk about your work, the intent is to build credibility, show them results, or rather talk about your results, and then close it by saying that, okay, this is the value that I can add to you and to your life. Okay. So if I am a fresher, let's say I am a fresher at IIDE, I want to give somebody an elevator pitch, I will start by mentioning the projects that I have worked on. Okay. If let's say I have worked with an agency, I will mention that very clearly. I will also mention exactly what brand was I working on, or what aspect of the project was I working on. Was I a copywriter? Was I an SEO expert? What was I doing in that particular project? And when I do mention that, I will follow it up by saying that by working on this particular aspect, I was able to grow or help the agency from X to Y in this span of time of my internship tenure, right? So when I say quantification of your efforts, you do not need to have years of experience. You simply need to quantify whatever it is that you're doing right now, right? Like if I were to quantify our interaction, for example, in terms of numbers, then I can see that we spoke about 10 things where we addressed 5 topics in a span of 20 minutes. That is maybe what we have done on a very objective level, right? So quantification has got nothing to do with experience. It's just a way to give numbers to what you have done. As simple as that. So they don't need to have experience. They simply need to mention the project. They need to mention the brand or the service. They need to mention the aspect of the service. They need to mention the impact that they created and in what time duration. These 5 things and you're all set here.
So as a student and as a fresher, how do we manage our time effectively? Because we have a lot of deadlines at the same point of time. And our DOP is saying something else, our content team is saying something else, our client servicing team is saying something else. So how do we manage all of these deadlines at the same moment of time?
Wow, that's a good question. I can tell you what I do to manage all these things. I follow this quadrant, okay? And the quadrant has obviously 4 aspects. The first aspect of the quadrant is it comprises of the tasks that are urgent and important. For me, they are on priority 1, right? this is what I will focus on finishing the moment I wake up in the morning. The second ones are the ones that are urgent and not important, right? So these tasks can be mundane, it might not create a lot of impact, but they are urgent, right? Then there are tasks that are important but are not urgent. It might be strategizing a content calendar for the next 6 months, which need not be delivered right now, right? But it's also an aspect that I need to focus on. I'll keep it priority 3. And the fourth one, which ideally people should completely eliminate, are tasks that are not urgent and not important. I see no point in you doing that, right? So that is how I prioritize my to-do list, and I think it works pretty well.
Since the beginning of your career till today, you have been consistently following that one piece of advice, and that has made you what you are. So can you share that one advice?
Sure. I think I would simply mention my why or my purpose of doing things. I genuinely believe in narrating stories and in listening to stories. I feel that is the purpose of why I do what I do as a communications consultant, right? So it is an aspect of your life, communicating with people, understanding people, that will help you develop relations. And from what I have understood is that if you really want to lead a fulfilled life, it all boils down to the depth of connections that you have with people, how deep your relationships are. So just focus on that, focus on building relationships and genuine relationships without money, without work, just by understanding people. I think that's the essence of it. That's the real essence of communication. Understand people and where they're coming from, right? Empathize with them. And lastly, if you are delivering value, then deliver it with the only intent of adding value. Don't focus on what you are getting out of it. I understand that business is transactional, definitely, but be very input oriented. Give as much as you can, and there is a God sitting up there, and He will give it to you. Yeah. So yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. We had a wonderful time, and the knowledge and the experience that you have shared here is phenomenal. And I hope all one of us present here are really going to value your insights. So thank you so much, and I hope you had fun.
Thank you.
Thank
I did.
you. Thank you.